Still on the economy, and we've seen a inflation uptick, and the rumours about Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell that he might not have his job for much longer. Trump has since denied this. What's actually going on?
Yeah, this could be an own goal by the president. I think it's a huge mistake to fire Jerome Powell. First of all, I'm not sure he has. In fact, I don't know he has. He doesn't have the legal authority to do it. But look, he's a president. He wants easy money, right? Most presidents do, because it perks up the economy, but also causes inflation. We just saw an uptick in inflation. We had a number of good news when it came to inflation prior, but now we're seeing it creep up again. And I think it's directly tied, frankly, to the tariffs. I think that's what's creeping up inflation. And I think he's trying to counter that, the president is, by wanting to have lower rates, like I said, because it's going to pump up, give artificial stimulus to the economy. But that's not what we need, right? All presidents want that because they're looking for that economic stimulus, but that's not necessarily good for the economy at times. Sometimes it is. Right now, it's not, when inflation is kind of coming up again. And what you're seeing is trying to get around. Look, the only way a president can remove the head of the Fed is what they call for cause. In other words, he had to have done something illegal or significantly problematic, not because of policy difference. You cannot legally remove him from that because it's an independent body, right? It's not connected to the government. And now you see kind of his, the president's allies trying to find these like weird ways to say we can remove him for cause. And they're pointing out to one thing specifically where he's doing a renovation of the Fed headquarters. And they're starting to say, well, you didn't get all the improvements approved by Congress like you're supposed to. So that's a reason why we're going to have you removed. It's ridiculous. It's going to make the president look bad. There's no need to do it. Really, you don't have to do it. And he's had all the success. The president had win after win after win. The people opposing him are going to point to that if he does that, as saying, see, anti-democratic. He's going against the laws. And the president doesn't need that, won't help him. I think it's a mistake.
And sometimes the best thing to do is nothing. Now onto the New York mayoral race, and the bigwigs on Wall Street aren't necessarily enamoured with the Democratic nominee Zoran Mamdani. How's that going to play out?
Look, you know, it's, I guess we're going to be talking about Mamdani for a long time, at least through the year, and hopefully not further, but possibly because he's leading the polls. Yeah, you know, it was this weird meeting. He sat down with all the bigwigs, all the billionaires, all the industry leaders in New York. It didn't go well. I mean, but you know, he basically, every time Mamdani is asked something, right, that is difficult, he has this ability to speak in long paragraphs that don't actually say anything. Like they asked him pointed questions and he simply just avoided it. He's able to speak in pithy, succinct terms when he's talking about his radicalism, right, and his Marxism and his anti-Semitism. He does that well. But when he's actually faced with tough questions, he goes to the, you know, Kamala Harris word salad mode because he's just trying to play out the clock, right, by just talking in a long-winded way. And I think everybody in that meeting really got nothing out of it. The reality is, look, I said it, my hot take is I don't think he's going to win. I think ultimately he's leading the polls because the poll is being split, right, between Cuomo and the current mayor, Eric Adams. I think ultimately what's going to happen is those same billionaires that Mamdani was speaking to, who had supported Cuomo significantly with millions and millions of dollars in the Democratic primary, are simply going to have a conversation with Cuomo, who is at this point not backing down because he is he really has one of the largest egos in all of politics. That says a lot, right? And they're going to say, look, if you want an ability to come back at all, ever, for any other race, you got to back down from this, right? We'll support you for other things, but you're clearly not going to win this race. Back out. Let's be a one-on-one. And I think if that's the case, Mamdani's going to lose. I think Eric Adams, who I don't love, but he is obviously the lesser of two evils, I think will win. And I think that's how it's going to play out.
And I think anyone who doesn't want government-run supermarkets is probably on the right track, particularly in the US. Now, lastly, there's been a huge focus, obviously, throughout the West since October 7 on this apparent genocide in Gaza. But in recent days, we've seen all these reports emerging out of Syria about the massacre of Druze populations by the jihadis who deposed the Assad regime. So what's happening in Syria, and where are the protests in the West?
Yeah. It's so funny. There's no protest in the West. Like, it reminds me of there's never an outcry from the left on like black violence in inner cities, right? They're never like, look, we have to put a stop to this because the vast majority of black deaths in America are from other black people. No, it's only when the rare circumstances when there's white on black death. Very similar. Look, the violence committed between sectarian violence, Muslim to Muslim violence, is legion, right? And it's in the millions of people who have died in recent years, right? You had in the Syrian civil war, you had nearly 750,000 people who were killed. ISIS killed almost 100,000 people in Iraq and Syria. You heard nothing from the West when it came to that. But when it comes to Israel, when it comes to the Jews who kill in the course of battle, right? Have have killed less than 50,000 people. Half of them combatants, right? Which, by the way, I want to stress again, is an unprecedented number in urban warfare. Where in urban warfare, the Urban Warfare Institute has said that 90% of urban warfare deaths are civilian. In this case, it's 50%. I think that speaks volumes how careful Israel is. No, there's not a peep about it. Only you see attacks on Israel. I think the whole incident is fascinating, and I'll be quick, is that Syria, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, Syria has the new regime has an ability to come to polite society and to the West, and Trump has created a peace deal with them. They allowed Israel to overfly Syria to attack Iran. They had an ability to come to the table to moderate and be part of the Western and the general world, and now they're squandering that by murdering these Druze who are fellow Arabs. And who's coming to their defense? Israel. Israel is coming to the defense of Arabs who are not Israelis because they want to put the slaughter to an end. I think the whole thing is fascinating. Of course, Israel will get no credit from these Western jihadists.
No, but it's very, very interesting to watch it play out, and very interesting to watch the hypocrisy of the silence. Ami Horowitz, thank you so much for your time.